Hey everybody, welcome to 30 Ways to Happy Days. I am Alana Yvonne with Truly Great Life, and we are on way number 16. You know what I'm going to say if you've heard one of these ways before. If you haven't already checked out ways 1 and 2, I highly encourage you to go back and listen to them because they are kind of foundational to the rest of the ways. But if not, welcome to way number 16. And this one they're all interesting, but this one is like really interesting because I think a lot of times we don't necessarily think of this as a way to a happy day. So what is it? It is self-control. It is the character strength of self-control, self-regulation. Let's jump into those definitions. It's discipline. It is regulation, as I said, or self-control. It is being able to appropriately control desires or, let's say, impulses or desires or emotions, or if we want to use that word, vices, or things that maybe we would regret later, but in the heat of the moment, whatever that moment is, it's like it requires you to cool off whatever is encouraging you to maybe go do or say or have or whatever it is. So self-control, self-regulation is that muscle that we all have. I promise you, we all have it. That says, hold up, right? Hold up. Mentioned before, in logotherapy, Viktor Frankl, there is a gap. There is a space between stimulus and response. How can we become aware of that space? How can we draw that space out? Okay, so this character strength of self-control or self-regulation, I think for many of us, it can trigger that whole little inner child, but I want it, right? I want it now and I deserve it. Or, we're very good at rationalizing why we want what we want and why we deserve it and why we should have it. And gosh darn it all, I want it. So this is one that can feel sometimes maybe restricting or limiting or work or hard or I don't want to. But the research shows, and you probably know from your own experience in your own life or, just being a human being with other people, it can lead to, let's just generically say, a greater likelihood of achieving whatever your goal is, whatever it is that you want in the long term. We also talked about how these character strengths are they're pathways for you to be your best self, okay? To be at your best, to be that ideal person or that ideal self, not in a non-realistic, idealized, impossible to achieve way, just can you be all you can be, right? When you lay your head down at night, can you forgive any, slip ups, but feel like you did your best and you did okay and you're a better person, whatever, that means for you, than you were when you woke up. You made a difference. You let's say you have a goal for a healthy habit. All right, that's an easy one to come up with. Self-control, self-regulation is obviously one of those character strengths that's very highly correlated with healthy habits. Okay? So if you are one of those people who are not tempted by, let's say, the dessert buffet, or, the birthday cake, or, you get a coffee, and of course it's they always ask, what do you want to eat with that? Do you have that self-control? Are you aware of the ability to just be no? Am I really hungry? No. So you can see how self-control goes in to whether it's related to, your physical body with exercise or with what you eat. It can also be with, your phone. Are we exercising self-control with the phone? 1 more minute, 15 more minutes, 20 more minutes. You can think about this for yourself, for a loved one, for a kid, for a student, for a colleague. This is where, on some level, things can be, it's hard when, I won't go into addiction because that's a whole different that's a whole different conversation. But let's just say the things that attract us, okay, within the realm of like our day to day. And it can be tempting to say, forget it, I'm going to have what I want. It can be very, because what we're doing with, self-control, with self-regulation, is we are like full on, prefrontal cortex there. This is not limbic system. This is not like urges or impulses. This is trying to, making efforts to have appropriate control over those impulses, those emotions, being disciplined. Now, this may come as no surprise to you that this character strength is like one of the lowest strengths for most people, according to the research. Like, we're in good company if you're struggling, hopefully not too painfully struggling, but if you're struggling to, let's say, achieve a certain goal with a habit, a healthy habit, a physical habit, okay? So self-control is a character strength, and maybe just by reframing it, as opposed to, it's it might be tempting to be like, I have no self-control, or in front of this, I have no self-control. So again, it's like, okay, we start with our awareness. Where are you feeling challenged in something that after the fact you're like, oh, I wish I hadn't done that, or I wish I hadn't had that or experienced that, or I wish I hadn't said that. Okay, for some of us, it's our language and our words and our interactions where it's like, that old saying, like, bite your tongue or hold your tongue or count to 10 before you speak when you're angry, or any of that. So that, again, would be using our character strength of self-control, self-regulation, discipline, appropriate, like, it's like a self-monitoring almost. But it's hard. It's definitely hard. That's why it's probably, one of the lower ranked strengths for most people. And it can be like a muscle. It can fatigue easily. Okay, this is one of the character strengths that can fatigue easily. So think of what you would like to have more self-control over in your life, whether that is like a physical habit you're trying to do, whether it's in a relationship to maybe change the way you speak when you feel upset or triggered or angry. Maybe it's you want to have like a mindfulness practice. Maybe you want to start, whatever it is. I'm sure you can think of something. Or at work, like self-control can also be at work and school. Like if you want to get, let's say, a certain grade, or you want to get a certain certificate or diploma or degree, or you want to go for a certain promotion or a certain job or whatever, to learn those skills to get the grades you may need, to get the criteria met in order to qualify for whatever it is, you're already exercising that character strength of self-control. So if you think back, and again, as I've mentioned with other strengths, like how far back do you need to go to identify and pinpoint one example where you definitely used your strength of self-control, even if it feels like, oh, it's not a big deal, and of course, it's a really small example, but like when we know and remember that we are capable of learning, okay, we are capable of growing, we are capable of making change. It gets tricky if you're trying to do a 180 from where you are. If you're over here and you're like, give me a week and I'll be over here and whatever it is, then you might be setting yourself up for some I don't want to say, failure, but you might be setting yourself up for some disappointment. It may not be taking into account like the very human reality that, we can take one step forward, two steps back, two steps forward, one step back, do it to the side, do a cha-cha, like whatever it is, we are, and life throws things at us we can't anticipate, which may derail or make more challenging the use of that muscle. So just to be aware, what is something you want to achieve? What is something you wish you had more self-control? And then knowing that you do have it, maybe it's just not exercised, or maybe you're overdoing it, you're expecting too much, you're pushing yourself too much, and then it's like, well, forget it. It's like, I think there's something called the what the hell effect. Like, I'm on this diet and I'm not going to do it, and oh, I'm here and I had the piece of cake, and well, what the hell, I had the piece of cake, I might as well have two. So that's one example of, we don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? We don't need to say, oh, I didn't exercise self-control here, therefore I don't have it at all, and I'm not going to use it at all. it's tempting, right, to write it off. We do, our brains are wired such that we are looking for easy answers because we have so much information and so many decisions we have to make on a regular basis that sometimes it's just easier, right? The devil or whatever it is. But I would encourage you, again, depending on what it is that you want, what it is that you think will make your truly great life, what it is that will make your day a little bit happier, to be curious about how can you bring self-control in it, even if it's like baby step, right? Baby step. So maybe, for example, you find that you are, wasting away hours or whiling away the hours on your phone because, you're getting that dopamine hit over, that dopamine, that reward center, right? We are just like ding, 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 keep going because it feels good. And man, if you had a hard day, you're like, oh, I want to feel good. So if there's something, let's say, that you want to cut back on, or there's something you want to do a little differently, what would be like the time? Yes, you have your vision of like what it's going to be like when it's all said and done and it's an ingrained habit or it's a fait accompli, right? It's a done deal. But in the meantime, you're here. In the meantime, you are here, right? At step 1. So what would be like a little itty bitty baby step? The whole journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. What is one step you can take? Not easy, and that's okay, because we can do hard things when we're motivated. If we're not motivated and we don't really want it, then are we going to work that hard? The carrot and the stick. What is drawing you? What is the push that is pushing you? Maybe it's a health scare. I hope not. What is pushing you? Is it turning a certain age? What is pushing you? Is it something that someone else experienced that you're like, oh, wow, I better get my act together? Sometimes we need that push, but other times, and ideally, we have that pull, that vision of what we want. So where can we bring self-control in? And, where can we also remember to have forgiveness as we go forward with our self-control efforts? Yeah, so this is a very, very important, strength. I think by reframing it as a strength as opposed to this like, I either have it or I don't, and I have so many examples of not having it or not using it, then it's like I'm a lost cause and I'm just going to keep going and blah, 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 and then, where have you had that experience of being disciplined? And discipline, I'm going to have to confirm this, but I believe the root of is related to the word disciple, and that I think has to do with, I'm going to say Latin and learning, right? To learn something. So if we turn discipline, and if I'm totally butchering that, let me know, but I'm going with that, and I will confirm it after. But if we can reframe discipline, right, which is, we're going to use that as a synonym for self-control or self-regulation. If we can look at discipline as a chance to learn, to me that sounds like more fun. To me that sounds like more hopeful. To me that sounds like, okay, I'm open to learning what I'm capable of in a way that's like realistic, in the sense of I'm not going to have unrealistic expectations of like, all of a sudden I'm like vegan after a minute. Sometimes we make that decision for something that is that clear cut and it is that fast. But for most things, for most of us, I think it's a gradual change, right? If we don't want to flip flop on something, it's something to think about. How does reframing self-control as I am a student in life, I am a student of life, and this is important to me. Again, it's tying it to what gives you meaning. It's tying it to a goal or a state of being or experiencing that you want. So again, like at root of all of these ways to happiness, what the heck do you want? And then can you use these to try and get closer to experiencing it? That's what the opportunity here is with all these different ways to happier days, to happy days. Like, what does that even mean for you and why? So, tie into that. So think about something where you do already exercise self-control or discipline. Even if you're like, well, I graduated 8th grade, or I finished high school. There was some self-control in there. For sure, there was some discipline. You were able to, have appropriate use of your time and your energies to achieve a certain goal. If you've run a marathon or a 5K or a mile, whatever, you exercise self-control. You exercise discipline. So when we remember that we've had success with self-control in one area of our life, right? I got really angry the other day, but I didn't yell. I took a deep breath. I took a break, and then I was able to speak more kindly to, let's say, that student or my kid or whatever it is, okay? I didn't fly off the handle. What's an opportunity for you to just bring it in a way that you would be excited and more motivated with each teeny tiny little success, where you'd be like, oh man, that feels really good that I was able to do that, and I want more of that, as opposed to maybe the quick fix. So again, obviously this is for like a huge range of things. Think about what is relevant for you. I hope that you can look at self-control and self-regulation and discipline as a positive thing in your life that you actually have access to. Again, these are all muscles. And then, I'll add also, a reminder, and this has to do with self-control. Like, if you're very high in self-control, and I've worked with some clients who this actually is one of like their top character strengths, which is, that's a minority. That's pretty amazing and capable of doing really amazing things. It doesn't feel as hard for them to do what needs to be done in order to achieve that goal. So it's like almost on a belief level, they believe, right? And this is what it is when we have this self-regulation, like, you're in charge of your feelings. You're in charge of your actions. You're in charge of your words, maybe even your thoughts, right? This can be a practice, though. If you believe you're not in control, devil made me do it. If we always are looking for, I'm not responsible. When we're responsible, we are response-able. We are able to choose our response. Again, not easy, but it's latent. It's in there. And how do you bring it out? Okay, so again, I think when we're motivated to achieve something or be a certain way, so think of something that like you want, that you're not there yet in terms of that state of being, right? A positive thing that you want to achieve. And then how can you remember, I have the ability to respond in this situation, like instead of going out, I'm going to study, right? Or I'm going to work on this, like, first things first, get the work done, and then I'll go play, right? And so I'm exercising self-control in that aspect, and then get that little dopamine hit, that reward, that socialization, whatever it is. Eat the frog first is one way of saying it, like get the work done. That is exercising your self-control muscle. But again, we don't want to overdo things. This is a muscle that is easily fatigued. So it's being aware of what might be overdoing it. Okay, so that could be like you're a couch potato and then you decide to commit to like a marathon within 2 months. Like that would just be, I've never run a marathon, but I'm just throwing that out as an example of like really overdoing it and not setting yourself up for making this, let's say, a long-term habit of being, or running or whatever it is. And another example of self-control is you don't lose your temper. People who have that ability to be super even keel are probably more naturally using, more easily, more energetically, it feels kind of sense to them, like more even keel, they're using self-control, okay? Think of someone who flies off the handle really easily. They may not be aware that self-control, that regulation, that self-regulation, that discipline is actually something that, whether they saw it growing up or whether it's more like, how their personality is or however you want to explain it, if we know that we can tap into this, we can reach into our pockets and use self-control, there's an opportunity there. So bring the curiosity, bring the, your love of learning, bring the interest, because it'll help you get to where you want to go. Okay? But the other thing I wanted to share is delay of gratification. That could be like a whole other recording, but delay of gratification where you're able to not do something or have something or pursue something because of, what it'll get in the way maybe of your long-term goal. Okay? If you're not able to delay gratification and there was like the whole famous marshmallow test, if you're familiar with it, but I've got this cake in front of me and I don't really care if I'm trying to lose 30 pounds. I'm going to have a slice of that. Okay, so that'd be an example of not delaying gratification. Just an example. I really want to play with my video game. I don't play video games, but I'm just throwing an example out there. And I have a ton of work I have to do, but I'd really rather just play. I'm not able to delay that gratification, that fulfillment of that desire. I want it now. Now. So the more we're able to stretch out that time for, let's say, the reward, whatever that is, stretch it out because you're doing something that will help you get to your bigger vision, your bigger goal, the bigger thing that you want. The problem is when we don't experience that reward, and there's the now and then there's the future. So using self-control to help you get to your ideal future, both in the moment, right? Baby steps, and having that vision for the long term. This is where we get to use this lovely strength. And I would also encourage you to write things down, to track them, to measure them, whether that's digitally or an app or a piece of paper, or, they have tons of habit trackers out there. And then you can also get that. It might be a very small dopamine hit, but it could be a dopamine hit of seeing your progress over time. It can be very satisfying. And there is, some evidence that things that get, measured or tracked can help be a motivating factor to continue with it and are more likely to stick to whatever those goals are. So think about that. I want to just share 2 songs. Again, however we can create these structures to support us in our efforts to live out whatever we want in life and use these strengths. So these 2 songs I personally really love, and maybe they'll be helpful for you. And if you don't know them, I encourage you to look them up. But the first one is from the Rolling Stones, right? You can't always get what you want. Do you believe that? Do you accept that? Do you think it's true? I think it's true. You can't always get what you want. This is very good, especially with kids, because it introduces them to the Rolling Stones and it teaches them a truism. Now, it doesn't mean, if you want to, that's limiting. Well, you can also say you can't always get what you want at the time that you want it. Okay, so depending on your goal, it could be that it could be later, right? Or you're going to have to choose. But anyways, that's a great song, super fun. Kids get really annoyed at me when I sing it, but I'm sticking by that. And then this other song is awesome. And again, I'm totally dating myself with these songs, but in any case, it's by Faith No More. It's epic. It's fantastic. Look up Epic by Faith No More. It's a really good song. And there's the line there, am I really going to sing this? You want it all, but you can't have it. It's in your face, but you can't grab it. Anyways, it's a great song. It's true. Our brains want it. Okay? We want whatever it is. We want it. We want it now. It might be right there in front of us, and we're like, it's so easy. It's right there for me. Okay? So remind yourself, using this song, using another song, using maybe some scripture if that's gonna resonate for you, or a poem or art or whatever it is to make it more visceral. It's okay that you want stuff, okay? Generally speaking. The question is, what are you doing about it? And how does that tie into what you ultimately want and how you ultimately want to be? Both individually and in your relationships with other people, professionally and personally, okay? Some things, you can't always get what you want, and you want it all, but you can't have it, and it's in your face. And I would just say, if you are a parent, our kids are challenged here. Challenged with a capital C. Lots of stuff in their faces that may tell them this is what they want. but they also need to know they can't have it. I will leave it at that. Welcome to parenthood in the 21st, what are we, Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century? I don't remember what it is, but in any case, it's a ride. I hope that these tools are helping you in your ride, and thank you again for joining. This was way number 16. See you next time for way 17.